You've got the Rocks Digital Lunch Blab. We're coming to you every Friday at 12 Central. And today we're going to talk about some cool stuff. I got lots of links here. Are you ready, John?
I am definitely ready.
So we're going to do a quick audio test here. John, I'm hearing a little feedback. Try that again for me.
Test 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. All right. We're going to
turn my volume down just a little bit.
You should have just gotten an alert, John, that you're a co-host.
Yay.
Or no, it looks like you became one and then got removed. Let's try this again. Okay, now you're a co-host. All right. So last week we had our first lunch blab, and I was teasing John because we had some technology issues.
Hey, it was the first one. We were working out all of the bugs and everything, but we're good.
And we were playing around with the way that the things we wanted to do, the functionality we want to add to the blab. And I was teasing John because he kept playing with that instead of participating in the conversation. So I'm going to throw John under the bus today, and I'm going to make him lead a lot of the conversation. You like that?
Yeah, especially since I didn't bring my bus today.
All right. Well, you'll be safe then. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and you pitched up this first topic that you wanted to talk about. So, and I think you even made a little diagram for people. So this is going to be interesting. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the new iPad Pro. And I'm going to let you drive this conversation.
So if you haven't heard, Apple announced, I guess it was Wednesday or Thursday this week, that the iPad Pro is now out and available. So the iPad Pro is the third version of an iPad now, and really to kind of sum it up, I think that it's truly a competitor to the Microsoft Surface product. It's a lot larger of a screen, and they're really beefing it up to really make it more of a true device that you're going to work on all day long. Yeah. So you mentioned that about that diagram. So I had fun and put this together. So here are the three generations of iPads that have been out. Of course, the smallest of the boxes that I have here is the iPad Mini. The middle one is the iPad
1, 2, and 3, and
well, actually, that's the Air 2 in the middle, and then the bigger box is the new iPad Pro, and this is a tabloid or ledger size page, so 11 by 17. So that gives you an idea of how big this is. Or I could even hold up my iPad Mini here and see that it is, a pretty nice size machine. A couple of features that they've really been pushing with this is there's now an Apple keyboard that you get that docks up similar to the way that the Surface keyboard does. So that's a pretty neat feature. And the one that I'm really entertained with is the fact that they now have the Apple Pencil, which is a stylus specifically designed to work with the iPad Pro, which is kind of an interesting thing to see it come out because for those of you that might have seen the new Apple or the new Steve Jobs movie, we actually had the opportunity to see that earlier this week. And one of the things that one of the lines in the movie was when Steve was talking to Scully, that part of the reason why he was saying the Apple Newton was not a success was because that it was stylus based. I'm kind of entertained by the fact that we now have Apple that's on the market. So it's a pretty cool device. I'm really anxious to see how it is going to sum up and compete with the Windows Surface device.
So one of the things that I think is pretty funny about them making a bigger iPad is the fact that, I finally just got the smaller one, and now they're making something bigger. And I finally downsized to the smaller one, thought I'd lighten my purse a little bit, which that's another whole story. That didn't seem to work. But,
well, you're not going to like the iPad Pro. It's weighing in at 1.5 pounds, so it's compared to the iPad Mini, it's at 0.6 pounds. So I mean, it's almost two and a half times as heavy as the iPad Mini. So it's going to be lugging around, a netbook style machine around.
Well, when you were telling me about it, John, I have to admit that I laughed and giggled and thought, well, if they're going to buy one of those, why don't they just buy a MacBook Pro? Come on.
Yeah, or even one of the MacBook Airs. I mean, they're almost getting to be the same weight, and the horsepower. Well, the iPad Pro does have the newer A9X chip in it, which is twice as fast as some of the previous processors. So it'll be interesting to see if they come out with the new MacBook Air here soon that is actually going to be using that A9X chip, because it is almost twice the processor as one of the earlier processors that was out.
I'm sure I can manage to lock it up still. I'm pretty talented at that. That's another whole blab, isn't it? Just about Lisa's bad
we won't get into that.
Habits.
And how many tabs do you have open on your browsers today?
Well, 3 browsers, and I can't even tell you how many in the Safari. I'd have to take about 5 minutes to count them. So it's really interesting, and I look forward to hearing more about it. So one of the other topics we have coming up, and this was actually contributed by a listener that's on the show today. Waves out to you. I am John Sparks. I know you're on the chat. So John was telling me about how Firefox is now coming to iPhone, which I think is interesting. What are your thoughts, John?
Well, I haven't downloaded it yet because it's just recently been coming out really into the full mainstream of it. They've been testing it since, I believe it was early September. It's been in beta, but it's now officially out on the iPad. Or the Apple Store, be able to add that to your iPad, your iPhone. I think it's kind of interesting because, we have had the Chrome browser out for almost a year now, and to have that third browser now available on our iOS devices is pretty cool. I know we were seeing that some of the big things about it is that we now have the ability to do some private browsing through that, which is kind of cool, especially for SEOs that are needing to see it without influence of the things that they've searched previously. So that's going to be a cool feature of that.
So you stole my line about the private browsing. I was reading about that, and I thought that was really cool. Well, you mentioned earlier I like browsers, so I'm so happy to report I now have 3 on my iPhone 6s that I can use because I did install the Firefox browser just a little bit earlier. I haven't played around with it much yet, but I do think the private browsing mode is really kind of cool. Maybe it'll be good for us to kind of see what others, when they remember us, and it'll be good to see how the ads and stuff display.
Would you hold up your phone again? What color is that?
Okay. Let's not talk about it.
See,
what color do you think
you're supposed to get a case that's the color that you like?
Yeah, I know. So John's sharing a little secret about me with those that are listening. I actually do not like the color pink. However, I do like a bargain. And
so we all need to start tagging Facebook and Lisa of things that are pink.
You're wrong. That's just wrong. Well, when Madison was first born, everybody was buying all me this pink stuff just to be, all
so
kinds of
going
evil.
back to the Mozilla browser, is it Mozilla or is it Firefox?
Is it Mozilla or is it Firefox?
Well, it's Firefox,
okay, I was just wasn't sure what the name
Mozilla.
of the app was. So,
on here. Let me look. I didn't actually. I just looked.
okay, so it is going to be labeled as the Firefox app. So I think the one cool thing, especially for folks like you, is that now does allow you to essentially have 3 browsers running on your iOS device to be able to then go ahead and be logged into 3 different devices, or not devices, but 3 different accounts whenever you're doing things like social media, or even anything else that you need to log in, maybe even a Blab. So you could, well, that wouldn't work real well, but okay, I'll shut up.
Well, we won't mention how many Blabs I'm actually logged into right now. We'll just say I have 2 on here and leave it at that. So going to the next topic of conversation, and this was one that John had submitted, and I told him when he submitted this, I said, you're actually going to have to carry the burden of this conversation. Because I'm kind of a nerd, but this one just... I don't want to have to work hard to read it.
It is kind of nerdy, but I think it's something that we do need to be thinking about, and that's the European safe harbor topic. And it's been a big kind of a thing that, those of us that are looking at more of, security and, privacy and all of that stuff is needing to really think about, and especially if we're doing any kind of business in Europe online. A great example of this is, if I'll pick on Zappos, for example. If Zappos is going to be selling shoes in Europe, they have to be able to meet all of the guidelines of the European safe harbor requirements that their government is requiring them to do now. So, the European Court of Justice is really setting up these guidelines that, your data is 100% private, so your name, your account numbers, all of that stuff have to be absolutely private. And one of the issues about it is that here in the United States, our Secret Service is requiring service or hosting service providers to allow them to have backdoors in for monitoring and all of that kind of stuff. And it's clearly in contradiction to what the safe harbor thing is. So it's really bringing up some interesting things. So really it boils down to the fact that there's still no consensus on how we're going to handle this here in the United States, but it's just an interesting topic that any of us that have an online store need to be kind of monitoring a little bit and just see where it's going.
Well, what I was thinking about when I was reading the information on the link you gave me is thinking about the tools and apps and those kind of things that we use to track clients, their conversions, and the things that they interact and do when they go to our systems. Say they visit our one of our websites, like Local Site Submit, and then it actually reports to a third-party tool because we have their tracking cookie in. To me, that feels like it could be a problem with people that are visiting our sites from another country. In reading this agreement at a quick glance, what do you
it's
think,
all
John?
kinds of different things like that. So if you have an online forum that's, whether it's based inside of WordPress or I'm just thinking of the old bulletin board systems that we used to use back in the early days of the internet. If you have an account and a username that can be viewed by anybody, that's almost in violation of this safe harbor system or guideline. Facebook.
Yeah, it's interesting.
How's that going to meet the requirements of safe harbor? Because, anybody can tag anything, and you've got pictures of yourself out there. I mean, your selfie collection and such. Are they going to disable tagging in, European communities to meet those guidelines? Who knows how that's going to work?
That is interesting. So speaking of tagging, I'm going to change the order of one of our topics today since you mentioned the word tagging. And let's talk about Facebook moments. Now, have any of y'all checked this out yet? It looks like we had somebody just chat about safe harbor. We'll have to revisit that, Greg, when we
it doesn't make sense, Greg. Why are they doing this? I mean, because, the internet is making everything so transparent now. I mean, think about security from, our parents or even our grandparents in comparison to where we are today. I've got young adult children that don't even think about sharing their phone number on social media or something like that. And I just, to me, that just seems like crazy. But anyway, so
you're showing your age, John. Did you know that right now? It's my gray roots on mine. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next topic because you mentioned tagging. We're going to talk about
that's
Facebook
really not
moments.
A topic change. How is Facebook Moments going to be able to be used in Europe because you're sharing more information?
So this actually came out in June of 2015, and I did put a newsroom link in the chat if y'all want to click on it to read about it while we're talking. We welcome any of y'all that are in the chat window to hop in if you'd like to join the conversation or participate in the chat just by typing. That's fine too. So they rolled this out in June, and I had read about it back then, but this morning I actually opened the browser on my iPhone, the Facebook app, and it had an ad up there for me to install Facebook Moments. And it said, find pictures that your friends are taking of you that you might not have ownership of. Well, of course, that made me curious. And so I immediately installed the app. So that worked, right? Got me.
See, pay-per-click campaigns do work.
I
wasn't supposed to say that teaser until later. Okay.
Yeah, you're not supposed to say that until later. So anyway, I installed the app, and it was so cool because it immediately went through my phone. I gave it permission. It went through my phone, and it found all the pictures of people I was Facebook friends with and suggested I message them the pictures, which, of course, I didn't do that, but I did actually send a test to John and send him like 17 pictures I had in my phone. It was from his actual surprise.
Now who's giving away my age?
Earlier in the year. But the fact is it was so cool. It tagged all the pictures for me. It recognized the faces in the pictures. It actually found 17 and wanted me to send it to John and like 3 other people that were actually in the photos, and had a button right there where I could send them the pictures. And then because John was not actually on Facebook Moments, he got an instant message through Facebook. And what did that say?
On my end, it actually sends a message. Hey, Lisa has shared photos with you through the Facebook Moments. Get the app.
So you couldn't actually get the pictures
completely
until you
pointed
get the
me
app?
to the app at that point in time to go get it so that we would actually have it.
That's really interesting. So it's enticing the people if you want to share the photos.
Right. I think
they
it's
have
kind
to
of like
Facebook
when Messenger came out. They pulled us away from being able to use any kind of messaging inside of that Facebook app
you
push us out to use
access
Messenger now as being that that chat client for Facebook as a standalone app.
So do you think they're going to take it away and we're not going to be able to use photos anymore from the regular Facebook app?
I don't think so.
Nah,
One thought that I kind of have about this is that, because there's been some talk about how face recognition is going to be getting to play into security in the future. And I'm kind of wondering if this is kind of an early part of the infrastructure to do that, because once the app is figured out who all these people are in it, it's truly going to be, and it is doing the Facebook recognition, or the facial recognition. And so I'm wondering if maybe that's what this is leading to, is making that facial recognition login feature that Facebook's been talking about a little bit, getting that into the mix of things of how Facebook's going to work.
Well, it's interesting. You know me, and I love social media, so I have to test anything that has the word social and media in it, or Facebook for that fact. So we're going to move on because I was looking at the time here. We got 11 minutes left and lots of stuff to talk. Ooh, I see Greg.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say what. I'm not going to read what Greg chatted. You're going to have to read it for yourself.
Might be.
But you could be right about that, Greg. So the next thing we're talking about is unleash the power of social media images. And this topic was actually, this was an article that Bernadette Coleman had published on the Advice Interactive blog. I believe it was yesterday. For those of you that don't know me personally and you're chiming in, or John, so we're the brand development team at Advice Interactive Group. And so we actually manage the digital marketing for, is it 4 or 5 brands? I don't know.
This week it's 5 for, it's 4.5 because,
So we manage the print, the web, the digital, all of it, all the social, everything that relates to Advice Interactive Group, Local Site Submit, and then Rocks Digital, which is our full content site that publishes 5 days a week, plus our podcast and this Blab. And then we also have then we have BernadetteColeman.com, the CEO's branding site, and I know there's another one out there.
We kind of monitor what's going on with Community.
Yeah, that's true. That's it. Thank you. That's the one. Thank you. And so Bernadette published something about how to unleash the power of social media images. And I think this is something that people, they really struggle with. The other day I was speaking and somebody said, well, if I want a cool image, I'll just go out to Google and Google an image and then post that on my social. Well, I don't recommend you do that. First off, it's somebody else's images. You don't own it, right? It's not yours. You just went to Google's images. But the fact is it's not unique. It doesn't connect with your brand. It doesn't connect with what you represent. So you have to be careful with that. Well, one of the things that Bernadette actually talks about in the article, John, is how the different things that colors mean and how reading them and looking at them can connect to people different ways. I thought that was really interesting. And one of them, I'm actually going to the article, read it. I thought this was interesting. Men prefer green and blue at the age of 19 to 24. Yellow gets people excited and enthusiastic about what they're seeing. Red makes people feel like they need to take action right away. And there's a lot more in the article, but I put the link in here so y'all can read about it. But I just thought it was really interesting to think about those statistics and how even on social media you need to think about your images, not just on your website with your logo and all that, but even on social media. And I'll shut up in 1 second, John, and let you talk, but I want to add one more point to it before I do. So I'm really particular whenever we put any content up on any of these sites about the image that is selected. And the reason is because when people share that link, it's going to share on social media, right? And so that image is also going to translate to Twitter, to Facebook, to LinkedIn, to all the other sites when somebody shares. So be picky about the image you post on your social media platforms, but also be picky about all the images that you put in your blog. And then when you're using the SEO Yoast plugin, make sure that you fill in the social tab and select the image you actually want to use.
Yeah, exactly. And, images are so important. I mean, because, we've all heard the statement, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and we can communicate a lot or a little, or maybe even having a bad first impression of our content based on the image. I was actually reading another blog post earlier this week, and the gentleman I follow him because he gets into all of the psychology and the mindset of what our content needs to say and all of that. And he was actually talking about images this week, about how some images can actually turn you off. And he was getting into some of the color theory that you were talking about. Think about how, all of the burger places all have red in their logos because that red is supposed to, make us hungry, and different things like that. So, it can be very powerful to have those images that say the right message for you.
It's interesting. One of the people Chad just commented that, let's be honest, most blogs and social media sites use the same overused purchase images.
That's so true. So true.
And the brand is indistinguishable. And that is absolutely what they do. And it is an example. Well, he uses Canva as an example here. One of the things that Bernadette talks about in the article, since you're mentioning that, is that about how local images, using local images to get attention, because, a lot of times, a lot of our businesses are about brick and mortar businesses. And so people want to connect to local images. So use images of buildings people would recognize that have liked your Facebook page or that you're Facebook friends with, or Instagram or Pinterest or whatever. Take your own images. Get off the computer. Sorry, y'all. Get off the computer, walk out the door, take a few images. If you can't do it, get a photographer, hire someone to do it for you. Spend a few bucks and get some of your own unique images that you can use on your content, your site, and your social media. People will connect with those more, and they will share them.
Well, I think that's exactly it. I mean, what can we, always have in mind as you're out at different events, walking the dog in the park, whatever it might be. Think about, hey, would that make a good image for a blog someday? And we can find some great things like that. I mean, yesterday I was sitting here eating popcorn at my desk, and I took a picture of that going like, one of these days I might need a picture of some popcorn. And I took it with my phone. People forget that these cameras and these phones are getting so much better of quality, we can get into a whole blab just on photography, but, take time and, compose it, make sure it looks good and stand still and all that good stuff.
I'm reading through Greg's comment here. He says, learn Adobe Illustrator. John, are you friends with Greg offline and you're telling him I don't know how to use any of the Adobe tools? Is that what
No, I'm not prompting Greg to give you all her time, but...
Are you sure? I mean, he's doing pretty good today.
Good job, Greg.
You're absolutely right, Greg. And I'm gonna let a secret on myself. John's gonna laugh when I do, and we're only got 4 minutes, so we can't talk about this too long, empty. John. I have to tell you now, if he can't harp on it. So I don't know how to use any of the Photoshop, Adobe tools, etc. I just have never taken the time to learn it. I've gotten really crafty with PowerPoint, and everybody laughs at me about it. And there was and I've been using PowerPoint to adjust and tweak things for years. And then what was it, about 6 months ago, somebody comes up with a blog post, how to create great images using PowerPoint, and they made a whole slide deck about it. So of course John had to tap me the link. And
they stole your content.
But if you get creative, you can really use some of those tools and create some of the images of your own for sure. And luckily at Advice, we have an awesome graphic artist, and so I can get him to create me a lot of great things. And then, of course, John has experience in all the tools, so I do torture him quite regularly to tweak things and adjust things and make them custom for what we need to do with our brand.
Yep. I know.
So up next, we are going to move on to talking about the top 50 directory sites and the positive impact it can make on your business. So it's interesting to switching gears here, John, because this chat just isn't about photos and social media, but it's about more than that. It's about local SEO and how businesses can get more of an impact. And this is actually something that an infographic that local sites submit published just yesterday, talking about the top 50 directory sites and how they've worked with their clients to improve their business. So what do you
so I think that this infographic is really helpful to really understand the value and truly, I mean, the title says it, the positive impact that the local directory submissions and all of that can really work out for you. Not really the local directories, but the directories to support your local cause. So many times I've, over the years, I mean, I've been in and around SEO for about 6 years now, and just I'm amazed at the bad data or the bad local citation information that's out there for people. I mean, I've seen spelling suite for the address 15 different ways or different examples like that. And
Well, you know, Google has now gotten smarter though, John, and you don't have to, you know, they'll pick up suite and those kind of things, which is great. But there's other areas
Right.
that people
Hours
don't
of operation.
having,
Yeah.
having a bad phone number. Totally.
What was it? We ran across one here a couple of weeks ago that it actually, the phone number had changed or something, and it went to a completely another business that wasn't, thankfully it wasn't their competition, but it completely made a bad customer experience because of that. You know, so
yeah,
you know, making sure that all of that's work, and really, you know, looking through that infographic that's up on local site submit is really an informative piece of information that you can look at. You know, I would encourage everybody to go out and take a look at it.
Yeah, I actually chatted the link so that they could go look at it. The link I gave them was actually a broken down version of it that explains in detail for SMBs how it can help the ranking. One thing that I noticed is how it will, the clients that have worked with local site submit have increased from 35 to 85% for a lot of them. Just with citation building, it's such a valuable and important tool that people don't even realize. One of the other things about citation building is there's so many different companies to go to, they're not for sure which one's right for them. And so one of the things that we like to do at local site submit is really make sure that our customers have ownership of their data. So they actually are given all their logins and passwords so that they can take control of their data. So it's pretty interesting. I noticed Greg is chatting that Bright Local is a good platform, and there are lots of them out there. I mean, there's so many of them to choose from, and it's about knowing which one is right for you and gives you control of what you want, the kind of information you want.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest questions that anybody that's evaluating all these companies needs to ask is, you know, who's in control of the data? You know, ask yourself, you know, if you stop doing business with this company, what happens to the information? You know, am I able to log into my accounts? Am I able to, you know, get in and make tweaks myself? You know, how much can you actually, you know, do that DIY type of a thing? You know, so I would look at some things along those lines whenever you're asking some of those hard questions.
I promise y'all, Greg is commenting all the stuff here for us. And thank you for saying that, because we know that Yex doesn't give the logins. That we were not going to say that, but you're absolutely right, and that's why you need to make sure that when you are checking out what platform you use, which citation company, that you know what you're really getting. And we want all of our clients to take control of their data. We want them to have ownership, which is why we provide them login and passwords. And when they discontinue using local site submit, their data does not change back to old data. Of course, unless a aggregator overrides it, which is another story, but that would have nothing to do with us or any other platform. That's another whole conversation. So, John, we're actually running over. It's 12:32 right now. And so before we wrap up, I just want to share another link here. This is something we were going to discuss today. So many times as SMBs, your PPC campaign, you're doing it on your own. You're not quite for sure how you're doing it or what you're doing, and so you miss some important things. And so this last article I just posted the link to was it covered some items that your PPC campaign might be missing, such as a conversion tracking pickle. Something. It's not on for lunch yet. At least not for us. A conversion tracking people, you know, thinking about those leads, and then negative keywords. And I was reading the article. All this time I've been hearing negative keywords, but I just thought it was like keywords people might search for that are negative.
Well, I think the blog post that you're referring to is got a really great example there. You know, if you're a high end clothing manufacturer, you know, you don't want low end clothing. You know, we don't need to see that you've got cargo pants, you know, for example, with high end clothing. You know, so that's definitely a great example, and even bringing the topic of images up again. You know, having the right images in your ads that say the right things, you know, or we're all familiar with seeing all of the the Obamacare, the refinance that have all of the little animated GIFs on them and all of that stuff. I mean, it's all that in those situations that motion is what they're trying to bring you in to look at that ad. And it, so many times we do look at it. So making sure that you've got a really good, strong image or graphic with that does get attention, that says the right thing.
You're right, John, and it is very important. And guys, you have to bear with me. I forget that John's actually, we office together, and so when I turn my head, it's because he's actually sitting next to me. I keep forgetting that sometimes and keep looking over him to answer what I have to say. I think I don't have a lot of experience with running the PPC campaign myself, and so I thought it was a really interesting.
I'm trying to get into your camera; it's not working.
They can just see your shadow. It's really interesting about the negative keywords. And so, like I said, I enjoyed reading it. I thought it was good. I think it's great for any SMBs that are thinking about doing their own ads, or they're doing ads and they don't have a lot of experience with it. Thanks for joining us today, guys. We're 5 minutes over. So with that, this has been the Rocks Digital Lunch Blab.
Keep it rocking, everybody.
We had a great time. Join us next Friday, 12 Central. We'll be here. And Greg,
thanks, Greg.